Technical difficulties, man. It's supposed to automatically unmute, but it did not, and here we are. So we're back. Thank goodness that did not happen too late. But yeah, so we don't have our coffee machine up and running, so it's just regular Nescafe instant coffee for now, which is fine. You got to use what you got when you got it. So audio should be good now for those joining on YouTube. I know you guys on TikTok can already hear me since we started. So the hot take, though, I'm bringing back something that I've said, a hot take I had when I started this stream, which is again the concept of instant gratification. The fact that we expect what has taken the better part of a century to create, we want to see knocked down in as rapid a time as possible. And I think that as for Simatin, it exists everywhere. It exists in government, it exists in private sector. It's just in the psyche of us as a society. And it's gonna continue to be the reason for our inability to pull ourselves out of the rut that we've been languishing in, actually, since I would say before 10 10 10. And I shoot very straightforward here. I very straightforward in Parliament, because eventually you have to just be straightforward and be honest about the reality that's facing us. And I try not to come with excuses because they're not. It's just the truth. And I think expecting things to happen like that overnight, when it literally has taken us, we talking decisions taken from the 60s, 70s, go up. It's taken that long to get us to this point, so it will take us just as long to get us out of it. And it'll take even longer if you continue to kind of play the games that we've seen being played leading up to becoming a country and since becoming a country, actually. So, I think teaching a bit of patience is something that I think we could all stand to learn as a society. Going into the word of the day, if you're just joining me on this vocabulary building journey, you know the word of the day has been changed up. We have the word, fun fact about it, how it's used, and its etymology, meaning where did it come from. Not to be confused with entomology, which is the study of insects, which is also kind of cool if you like bugs. And today's word of the day, brought to you by Merriam-Webster, is actually demeanor. Demeanor refers to someone's outward manner and behavior toward others. It's spelled Demeanor. Use it in a sentence. At home, your demeanor impacts your family more than you realize. Your kids feed off your energy. If you're engaged, positive and present, they feel it. Where it came from. So the history of demeanor actually begins with a threat. The word has its roots in Latin minari, meaning to threaten. A form of that word was used in context having to do with driving animals, that is, compelling them to move. And from this word came more recent French ancestors having to do with leading, guiding, and behaving. By the 14th century, English had adopted a word out of this lineage, the verb demean, meaning to conduct or behave oneself, usually in a proper manner. Another demean, which is defined as to lower in character, status, or reputation, entered the language later on by way of the mean that has to do with being cruel. So you have your demeanor, you have demean, how you conduct or behave yourself, but then you also have don't demean, the efforts made by so and so. So it's English. The noun demeanor was actually formed in the following century through the addition of the suffix or, and that's how you get demeanor today. So that's a interesting little history on that word, and the fact that there's two types of demean. I think is also interesting, but that's English for you. Game of the month, and that's why I'm so tired. So the game of the month is Subnautica 2. It's early access on Steam. Subnautica 2 is the third game, but the official sequel in the Subnautica universe. Subnautica is a game developed by Unknown Worlds, which is a San Francisco-based game developer. And how do I describe Subnautica? Underwater horror. Yeah, that I think kind of sums it up. It's exactly as it is. Actually, the game has been known to trigger thalassophobia in people who do suffer from thalassophobia. And what is thalassophobia? It's fear of, deep water, big things. And it is a little petrifying, even as someone who loves the ocean. There's always this feeling when you hop off a boat in deep water and you look down and you're like, what could be lurking? And I think the game does a great job of creating that fear in you. It's meant to be a psychological experience for the player. You're stranded, much like the first Subnautica. Subnautica 2 starts off with you being stranded on an alien planet. You are actually part of a human colonization effort by a company called Altera, and essentially hijinks ensue. There's a lot of telepathic stuff going on with the alien life forms that you encounter. This game, Subnautica 2, has kind of taken a new turn in terms of like what you have to do. You're essentially a printed human. You're sort of just a you know 3D printed body. You die, you're reprinted. You die, you're reprinted, and you can actually now, as opposed to the first game, you can um, adapt yourself, your DNA, to be able to eat the foods on the planet, to tolerate heat, to tolerate certain temperatures and atmospheres and such. So it's a lot bit of science as well. Of course, there's a crafting element to it. Overall, I was playing the early access version of Subnautica 2, and then I had a moment where last night I broke my game. But that's the point of early access. You try to break the game, you do whatever you can, and then you report what you encountered that did break your game to the developer, and then the hope is that they fix it by the time we get final launch. So that's the game of the month. Probably play that a bit more today. Probably start a new game because I broke my original game. So, and there's a lot of resource management as well. So you got to keep an eye on your food, your water, your oxygen consumption, of course. And it's, again, as someone who enjoys the ocean, it's single parts beautiful but also terrifying. So yeah, I keep saying I'm a stream. I am gonna set it up, guys. Probably via Twitch, probably via TikTok even, and I'll stream something that I'm playing at one point in time. So just let you guys know. Moving on to some general updates. I didn't mention this in last week's live, but as you may know, on May 9th, March 9th, on May 9th, Prime Minister Rob Jetten of the Netherlands visited St. Maarten. I had the honor of welcoming him at the start of his tour, which began at the Sundial School. That location was picked where he could see not only completed and pending works at Sundial itself, but also the site of our future modernized St. Martin Library. And I'll touch a bit on that update later on, as we go over the topics one by one. So it was great to see PM Yetten in this role. Rob and I met when we were both in Parliament in 2020, actually, freshly elected. Rayon and I were freshly baked MPs, and we met him in January 2020, right before the onset of the COVID lockdowns. And it's a privilege now and an honor to kind of have that full circle moment and meet him in this capacity. So that was a nice little Saturday that we had. And then moving on to trust fund updates. So, as I mentioned, we showed Prime Minister Yetten the site of the future modernized library. I can say that the contract for the library has been awarded to Steel Structures, the same company that is building Sister Marie Laurent's primary school in Mid-Region. They're now getting their administrative work done, and we should see mobilization on site at the library in early August. So something that I have talked about since being in Parliament, something that I've talked about since being minister. I'm very happy and proud to see that we're getting to a point where we could see mobilization starting as early as August. And of course, they will take all precautions to make sure that they're not disrupting Sundial, who also has to see some construction start at their campus with regards to their gym. So just to mitigate the impact on students and learning. However, I'm just happy that we're getting to a point where these works are going to be done. So thank you again to the NRPB, the World Bank, to the ministry, who has been working tirelessly. I drive a very hard, a very hard project management schedule, a very strict program, as the young people would say. I run a very strict program on how we can get these projects going. So very happy to hear that update. With regards to Charles Leopold Bell, the tendering has been closed. 4 bids have been received, 1 local, 2 regional, and 1 US-based company. So the further processing of that tender is happening now. And once I have a better update to share, I of course would bring that forward. But again, the good news to focus on is if you drive through Mid-Region, you see action happening at System Laurence, and soon you will see action happening at the site of the Simatin Library. And I'm looking forward to everyone supporting the library as well once it's back up and running in its larger space. I was happy to hear yesterday, which I'll touch on a bit later, that it continues to see traffic. So, things are positive, things are happening. With regards to Parliament, last week we finalized the question hour on sports funding that was following questions received from MPD Marla Bega related to the pending 1 cent levy on imported gasoline that is meant to go towards funding the local development of sports. I want to thank MP La Bega for initiating the question hour and thank the members of Parliament as well for their questions. During the meeting, MP Duran asked if I would be willing to meet with himself and MP Irion the on basically what we have already kind of been, what I've mentioned and what I informed the MP of. While in Parliament, at IPCO was speaking to my counterparts from Aruba, and we were discussing their existing legislation, which is Loto Pa Deporte, which is a fee collected from lotteries and casinos that basically goes towards sports and culture development on Aruba. This is something that we're already looking into doing. So happy to, of course, continue that process and adapting the existing legislation, possibly for Simatin. So again, thank you to the MPs for their questions on that. I do want to clarify something. So what was stated about fees being collected in Parliament that day for the question hour, but not traced to spending, relates to a collection process that I was informed allegedly took place in 2022. I urge everyone, please read articles, watch the meetings, read beyond the headline. That is how you have reading comprehension. Comprehension of what I said is very critical to understanding where we're at. Since taking office in November 2024, there has been no collection exercise. So as my ministry continues to investigate what actually happened, I just wanted to clarify what was actually said and the time frame that I was referring to. So yeah, just to let everyone know that that's where we're at. Next up, next week, I should be going to Parliament, I think, if the invitations come out this week, to finalize the committee ECYS meeting on the EGMA results. That is, of course, the early grade reading and early grade mathematics assessments that were done last year with groups 3 and 5. Group 5 being the group 3 of 2023 when it was first done. Next year, of course, we want to expand to include group 7, and we also want to include the private schools. So Learning Unlimited and Caribbean International Academy, just to kind of establish, the benchmarks across the board in our academic ecosystem. So that is on Parliament. In terms of education updates, the short story contest, the second edition of the Dame Ruby Butte National Short Story Contest, was announced yesterday, officially launched yesterday with a press release, and we'll also have some different things coming out about it in the coming weeks to encourage students to participate. This initiative, of course, was designed to promote literacy, creative expression, and cultural appreciation among St. Martin's young people. The contest is open to all students aged 12 to 14. Participants are invited to submit original stories between 750 and 3,000 words. Submissions are going to be accepted from August 1st to August 21st of 2026, and winners are going to be announced in recognition of International Literacy Day on September 8th. Of course, if you are turning 12, like last year, if you're turning 12 in the month of September, you can still enter. We will allow you to participate, so don't worry about that. This year's theme, Beats, Bites, and Bacchanal, actually challenges students to imagine Carnival in the year 2050, exploring how artificial intelligence and emerging technologies may shape the future of our most celebrated cultural tradition. Participants are also encouraged to creatively examine how innovation and cultural heritage can coexist. This is something that we've talked a lot about as a ministry with the Department of Culture, even with the Simatin Museum. I've talked about it with friends of mine who work in these spaces in Jamaica, in the Netherlands, and elsewhere. How do you integrate technology into preserving and highlighting cultural heritage? One way that you see that happening elsewhere is where persons are using things like augmented reality to build digital representations of artifacts, of sites, landmarks that may be in danger of loss, whether through natural disaster, man-made disaster, war, you name it. So it's trying to challenge our young people to think about that. And, once you think about that at a certain age, that can even lead to a career. There's always going to be someone that needs to do the work to make these things a reality. So we want to also ensure that in these stories, the spirit, the identity, and the energy of Carnival, continue to endure in this rapidly evolving world. So that was on education. What else? In sports, Saturday we had the SSS games, Sabre, Simatin, and St. Eustatius at a school level participating in track and field. Of course, earlier in the year, our teams went to Statia, to Sabre to participate in different activities that they had over there. So track and field this year, however, was hosted by Simatin at Raul Elite Sports Complex. I want to say congratulations to all participants, especially thank you to our guests from Sabre and Statia for coming through. But I want to particularly congratulate our winners from Ruby La Vega Primary School, which is Aiden Bladen and Aiden Irish. Mr. Bladen, exceptional performance. Second place in ball throw, second place in mixed relay, first place in long jump, 50 meter and 150 meter. And Mr. Irish, also exceptionally performing well, first in all of his events and fourth place in ball throw. So very happy to see the interest building again. Track and field, along with netball and basketball and baseball, continue to be some of the more popular sports. So happy to see that participation at a school level, and looking forward to watching these young athletes continue to develop through their respective sports clubs and their schools. Now, to touch a bit on culture, as you know, Flag Day is coming up. I just wanted to make a brief statement that I will also repeat tomorrow in press briefing. A surprise, surprise. Um, I just want to inform the public of an adjustment that's being made to this year's Flag Day observance. As Minister of ECYS, I'm always fully committed to ensuring that our national symbols and our history and our sense of identity continue to be honored with the dignity that they deserve. At the same time, I have a responsibility, as I've always said, to be honest with the people of St. Martin about the financial realities currently facing the ministry. This ministry, like most, is operating in a severely constrained financial environment. As many may know, we're not an income generating ministry. We do make a little money off of, exams and certain things, but not to the extent that we would want to be able to sustain certain initiatives. In addition to that, a significant portion of our budget, as most will know, is legally and structurally already committed to education, including the subsidies required to support the operation of subsidized schools. This means that this discretionary space I have available for anything outside of that, national events, incidental subsidies, and other important initiatives, has become increasingly limited, of course. In light of these realities, the ministry has had to make difficult but necessary adjustments. And these are not decisions that I take lightly, especially when it comes to our celebratory days. They're made, of course, with the understanding that every guilded that we spend must be carefully considered, that the ministry must find more creative and cost-conscious ways to meet these responsibilities. So for Flag Day 2026, instead of hosting the traditional full public program, the ministry will be pivoting to a more digital and symbolic celebration. This digital observance will, of course, include contributions from school children, including messages from students who would ordinarily have participated in the Flag Day parade, a symbolic flag hoisting component, and short media features on the history and significance of Flag Day, and recorded messages as well from national officials. So we'll also be inviting the public to participate in a visible way by proudly displaying the Simatin flag at their homes, on their vehicles, at their businesses, on boats, wherever appropriate. Flag Day is not just about the ceremony part of it. It is actually about pride, identity, unity, and respect for the symbol that represents who we are as a people. While the format may be different this year, the meaning behind the day remains the same. So this decision reflects the approach that I believe is necessary in this moment, to be very transparent with you all about the challenges that we're facing, to be responsible to you all in how we spend your public funds, and creative in ensuring that our national observances continue in a meaningful way. So the ministry continues to do its best to meet these commitments, even under difficult circumstances. And we're going to do so honestly, carefully, and with, of course, you, the people of St. Martin, at the center of every decision. So I just wanted to give everybody that information, be very transparent about that reality, and moving forward, continue to find creative ways to make sure that we observe these days, even if we cannot do it with the fanfare that I firmly believe it deserves. And finally, next youth cabinet meeting is actually this Thursday. Looking forward to it. We have our WhatsApp group. I'm waiting for the shenaniganry to start in that. And then that will be essentially my week. And then next week, as I said, Parliament should be. And then we see how it goes from there. So want to thank everybody for tuning in. I also want to make notice, normally I do it. We haven't yet hit the time, but it is May. It is May 19th. June is right around the corner. Hurricane season is right around the corner. Make sure that you assess your home, your business, your vehicle, your insurance package. Make sure that you have your documents in order. Make sure that you start planning out your preparedness and getting your solar stuff if you have to, and figuring out, how you can get yourself ready for the upcoming 2026 Atlantic hurricane season. I know it's not something anybody wants to talk about, but the reality is, it is our reality from June to November. We've seen, what happens with climate change last year, with Hurricane Melissa in Jamaica. Is that last year already? I can't. The years are blending together. So yeah, so just to start putting it in your mind that we need to start getting hurricane ready as the Atlantic hurricane season kicks off on June 1st. So thank you again for tuning in. Should be here next week, depending on when that meeting in Parliament is scheduled, actually. So I keep you guys posted. And have a wonderful